Hi, friends. Welcome back to Above Par. And this is part 2 of my conversation with my brother, Dudley Hart, who's a former PGA Tour player, Champions Tour player, and now he is one of the coaches for the University of Florida men's golf team. And so I had him on the podcast last week, and we just talked all about different things that have to do with what a tour player is thinking about, the mental game, how he can share some insight for the average golfer. Some of it may or may not pertain to your level of play, but I bet for sure that you'll be able to pick up some nuggets that will help you in your game. So here is part 2 of my conversation with my brother, Dudley Hart. So speaking of negative emotions, I'm going to tell a funny story. So there's a couple things that make me crack up laughing when I think of you. Okay. All right. There's a lot, but
Great. A lot.
we're going to segue here. All right. One is, okay. So when I was trying to race you out of the parking lot with the Honda and that there was the parking barricades in front of my car.
That was one of the funny. I can still see the look on your eye. Your eyes got like the size of watermelons. You're like, oh crap, what did I just hit?
Oh my God, Dad's going to kill me. Yeah. I was like, my brother and I were having this look, we're like going to beat each other out to get on the highway. We stopped for lunch somewhere and I floored it, but there were those like parking barricades in front of my car. And then there was a parking barricade on the other side.
On the other, she got stuck.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that one, but the other one, this one does not make me laugh. This one actually literally makes me cringe and I want to hide. Do you remember when I was
naked at some point? Did you?
What's that?
You didn't see me naked at some point, did you?
No. God. Oh, I'm going to edit that out.
That makes Suzanne cringe.
Okay. So, no children listen to this. So do you remember when I was caddying for you at Greensboro?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
John Houston.
Oh my God. Okay. So I may have told this story before on one of the podcasts. But this is the power of our minds, and the fragility sometimes of tour players, which they don't get. And I think a lot of amateurs, this is where I'm going to segue into this, is a lot of amateurs have conversations on the golf course that are just not helpful. But to tell you the story, so I was caddying for Dudley. We were on the 16th hole, but he was paired with John Houston. If anybody remembers John Houston, he had a way of just going stupid low. He could shoot some numbers that were just crazy for that time. Now, it's more often, and he could putt it like it was out of his mind. So that day he was making everything from 40 footers to 10 footers, 50 footers, and they were all center cut, right in the middle. They weren't going off the back or lipping in. So I was so into his round, way more than I was to Dudley's round. Dudley's going, Kathy, I need a putter. And I was going, shut up. John's putting, leave him alone. He's like, hello, I need a club. I'm like, shh, John, let's watch John. Right. So we're on 16. I hope I never run into him again. I'm so mortified. So John had given me a couple looks, a little cocky, eyebrow raise, after he'd make a putt. And I'm like, okay, he knows that I'm into his game and totally not into Dudley's game. Right. So, and I think you were playing really well that tournament too.
I was playing pretty good, but he was lapping me. He was just going crazy.
Yeah, he was going great. So it was 16th hole and he made a putt and he looked at me and I went, oh my God. I said out loud, oh my God, you can't miss. Right. And you whacked me in the stomach. You punched me somewhere. And I was like, what? He's like, did you hear what you just said? You should know better. Cause I was a tour player, right? I'm a golfer. I was like, oh my God. Well, then after that, he did I don't know. He didn't make a birdie on par 3 17, and then he didn't get up and down on 18. And he lost.
The lid was shut. Yeah.
I cost him the Greensboro Open. So, but anyway, so it's so interesting. So the conversations, I'm telling that story just because it's, embarrassing for me, but it just shows even you very sensitive to the things that we talk about on the golf course. And I find a lot of times what happens is that I tell a lot of my clients and my listeners is that you want to conserve what you talk about on the golf course. You want to protect your own mental bubble. You don't want to go out there and start talking politics or the PTA. And then they wonder why they can't focus or pay attention, to that next shot. And I always say that of the times that I've played, and when I've caddied, is the conversations that you have with other tour players. I call it vanilla. They're like Switzerland. There's nothing, you're not going to talk about anything controversial if you talk to other players. And also players know when to give another player space. You don't go up and start talking to somebody who just hit a bad shot. So can you talk a little bit about
that? Rory
so,
Sabatini.
I know. Oh my God.
Another story for another time.
Yeah. So Wait, what did you say?
I said, you said you don't go up and talk to other players after they hit a bad shot. And I said, unless you're Rory Sabatini.
Oh,
He did that. Yep. That's another story we can get into later. He did to me at International one year.
Oh, well, you might have to tell that story, because I can always, if it's too long, this might have to be 2 podcasts. Address that about how people, the average person, is actually not helping themselves by talking about certain things on the golf course and what a typical tour player or good player talks about, even college kids, right?
Well, I would think the first, I might contradict what you're saying just a little bit.
Go ahead.
In that I don't think you can stay concentrated for 4 to 5 hours straight when you're playing golf, obviously. I don't think pros, I know pros don't do that.
Yeah, I'm not implying that.
Yeah. And I know amateurs definitely can't do it, because we work on concentration but you have to have bubbles of concentration around each shot where you are all in on everything that you need to be computing, to whether it's, coming up with the yardages, winds, where you want, how exactly far you want to hit it, which side of the green you want to hit it on, whatever. You have to have bubbles of intense 100% concentration. And especially when you get behind the ball, and when you start focusing on your target, whether it's a putt, chip, full shot, whatever, you have to be all in. But outside of that, as a tour player, I don't remember, I'm not a political guy, and I don't like getting into it, because especially nowadays, it's just too emotional for people, and you can't have conversations with people. So it's not worth it.
Right. Which is my point. Like, you wouldn't bring up, like, a lot of amateurs will bring up, like, don't forget there's water up there. Don't hit it out of bounds. Right. Like, these are things that we wouldn't talk about on the golf course. We wouldn't sit there and start talking about someone else's swing or anything that would rile you up and distract you from focusing
and get you thinking in a negative way. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, most of me and my buddies, when we were playing, would talk about was either sport in between shots, walking down the fairway, but sports, or look at that girl over there, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That was basically it. But you don't get way out of your concentration level by getting into something negative or something that's going to get your emotions going. It's way harder to calm back down and to get refocused. And when you need to hit that next shot, the conversations would always be, like you said, very vanilla. They'd be very basic stuff, and we'd be laughing about whatever. And you never go, oh my God, don't look, look at the water. Look how close that pin is to the water on this hole. Right. You just don't say that stuff. You notice it.
Right.
Anybody that tells you they don't notice that as a tour player too is lying.
Yes.
But the key point is when we see all that stuff. We see the out of bounds. We see those stakes that look like they're a foot apart, and there's 4,000 of them down the left side of the fairway. Sometimes we see that, but when you stand behind the ball, it has to be your target and your 100% commitment to that target. And that's where your focus comes in. For me, I've timed routines for the guys on the team. I want them to know that, and this might be a little too in depth for some amateurs watching, and for maybe the more highly skilled guys, maybe this is something that they can really work on. But your routines go in a long ways into your concentration level. It's a massive part of what we do as pro golfers or highly skilled golfers, or even middle of the road golfers. If they can time exactly how long it takes them to do. So it's literally, how many steps do you want to take into the ball? So how far do you start behind the ball? That's where it starts in my mind. Mm-hmm. How many steps? I take 2 steps, and then I put my left foot down, my right foot, the club down, and then my right foot down, and take my normal stance. Mm-hmm. I take one look at my target. It could be anything. It could be a window in a house. It could be a corner of a limb on a tree. It could be the flag. It could be whatever, a corner of a bunker. I look at that target, and I come back to the ball, and I pull the trigger as fast as I can, because I am trying to, my whole routine takes me less than 10 seconds. It's anywhere from not like 9-2 to 10-2. It's like right in that window every time.
And just to be clear, when he says take it as fast as he can, he's not saying he whips it back. He's saying he's not allowing a lot of time between when his eye comes back to the ball and the club goes back. That's the fastest.
Exactly. Yeah. Because for me, it just gives me more time to think of stuff I don't need to be thinking about.
Right. Yeah. I tell people a tactic when they get very good at their pre-shot routine, and our brains like pre-shot routine because it's a habit. It's one of those things that we can conserve mental energy. We don't have to think about it too much. and we go through, and it becomes just very rote, but it also is a way for us to trigger concentration. So, and focus.
Yep.
So the other thing too, is that when those negative thoughts come up and you've gone through and you have a routine that's really solid, just like you walked through those steps, I offer up to some of my clients that I call it crowding out. If you can't stop, like, I just don't like this tee box or this wind, or you can hear the negative thoughts coming up, just think out. You can't think negative thoughts and say your routine out loud or at the same time. So in your head, just walk through the steps out loud. I'm going to look at the target. There's my target, left foot, right foot, whatever it is. Now go.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't allow the thoughts, I call it crowding out, the negative thoughts from coming in.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter how good you are, what your handicap is. It's such a simple thing it's understanding the purpose of a pre-shot routine. While it helps you with your fundamentals, right? Getting set up, your grip, your posture, your ball position, your alignment, all that stuff. It also helps people. It's such a simple thing for people to help them get in the habit of focusing and crowding out negative thoughts.
Yeah. And thinking the right way. I mean, the way I put it to myself, because I made mine fairly quick, because I just want to be as natural and reactionary as I can in golf. Some people, everyone's wired differently. So like we have guys on our team that literally takes them almost 30 seconds.
Right.
And I don't personally love that. I think I'm trying to get them to speed it up a little. I'm not saying they have to be 10.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, you're starting to think about things that you don't need to be thinking about. You might be thinking, what are you doing standing there for 30 seconds? I mean, you're thinking about, okay, I got to take the club a little more square away from the ball, whatever, you're thinking anything but what's out there. That all that matters is where that ball is going to go.
Right. And you're giving yourself more of an opportunity to tighten up.
Exactly. And your eyes and your mind are incredibly powerful. If you are really, really focused and you're saying to yourself and committed to a target, even when your mechanics are a little bit dicey, just because you're, if you're a 40 handicapper, you see a high draw coming out of the chute, doesn't mean you're going to be able to hit a high draw. I mean, you still have to have some level of skills, but your commitment level and your eyes can really help narrow in your dispersion pattern on misses. You can get a lot closer to your target when you're really focused in and committed to a target.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so good. I think it's so valuable. And I'm going to tell you where I think pre-shot routine showed. I'm going to do another story. You don't know, like, I'm very observant, right? So, so you did this at Thanksgiving, but you know that I'm not overly athletic, right? So I'm not horrible, but I'm not overly athletic. Let's just put it that way. But I can kick butt in Pop-A-Shot. Like when I remember at Bay Hill and all the mini tour players, we go to the bar and like Pop-A-Shot, because what I would do is I would tap into zoning and focus, and I could just knock everything else. All I saw was just the basket, and I would kick a lot of butt in, is it something that I can rest my head on? Not so much, but it's just like one of those things that I knew how to zone in. And a lot of that came from just playing. I know those guys did too, they played, but just being able to tap in. And I credit that to pre-shot routine and being able to focus. This is where you did it. And you probably don't even know this happened. We were playing beer pong at the house with the kids. So Dudley has 3 college triplets and Avery. And then I had 3 girls in a row, and they were just graduating. So this was a couple years ago. We were playing beer pong, water pong, whatever, but it was all about a competition. And you may or may not remember this, but you totally ticked off your kids because, they should be able to play this game, right? They're in college. My kids too were like going, wait a minute, I own this game. But you could see you just zone in and focus in on something that you probably haven't played a lot of, is beer pong, like a ton of it, right? It's like we played quarters in college, right? When the beer pong was around.
That might have been the second time I ever played beer pong, but
and you just nailed, just kind of like me playing Pop-A-Shot. It was being able to focus in, and you just kicked Ryan's butt, and he was not a happy camper and you called out loud. This is another thing that I sometimes comment about, because you do this with putting too. I know you do it with other shots, but I notice in putting is you can sit there and say, I'm going to make this, or I got this. And you clicked right in on your focus and you made it. Right. Yep. And for a lot of amateurs, if they sit there and say, I'm going to make this, or I need to make this, or I have to make this, or this is my moment, they feel pressure. Right. And then they can't function. But what you did, which was so cool to see because you've done this your whole life, is to you, that was a way of dialing in your focus, not increasing your pressure. I don't know if I noticed that.
Well,
I didn't want to say way to go, because your head would have gotten really big, so.
Well, Yeah. I mean, it's just something that I've trained my whole life to do. And it's, and really in that scenario, what I'm not consciously thinking of this, but I'm just using what I've learned in golf, and I stare at my target, and I'm telling myself I'm throwing that ping pong ball in it, and I'm literally just I'm not even trying,
Right.
other than using my eyes, and that's the big thing with I think commitment and routine, a big part of it, and focusing on that target. It's really that, and then just saying fuck it, if I can say that. I mean, you might have to bleep
totally.
it out, but that when I say that to myself, I say it to myself 50 times around when I'm playing. Just that, all that means to me, you can come up with any words you want to use if you don't want to use a bad word, but it's me just saying, let go. This is all I can do. I'm doing everything I can right now. I'm focusing. I've committed my routine. I'm committed my shot. I've trained. I've been super, super careful and very anal about my practice and doing things the right way every single day. Now let's just go out and do it and use my mind and my eyes and my commitment level and say, screw it. It's either going to be good or bad. But I know I'm controlling everything I can control in that moment.
Yeah. And that's visualization too, right? You're kind of picturing yourself in that shot. I mean, maybe whether you're purposely calling it visualization that you're trying to do it, it just kind of becomes a habit for you, is just picturing what's going to happen and then letting your body react to it. Bob Bertel is a big person in that too. For sure. Especially with putting. Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about belief. This is another thing that I have quoted you on. You don't know that you said this. I haven't told you that either, because, I don't want to get your head any bigger than it is, but you said it this summer. I was helping Ryan out this summer a little bit, and you made the comment. Now I'm going to preface this by saying that you were the number one junior in the country, right? I just don't want to make sure I have my facts wrong. Okay. So you said, I don't get these juniors today. When I was a junior, I just believed I was the best player in the tournament. And I thought to myself, that's amazing, because I believed I'd never be good at putting. And we were both right. Right. And so one of the things was that your brain doesn't know whether what you feed it is going to serve you or not serve you. All it knows is what you repeat the most. So the story that I say is that, you went out and said, I just thought I was the best player in the tournament. And you go out and win a tournament and you go, of course I did, because I believed I was the best player in the tournament. And I believed, what I fed my brain a lot, and my brain believed it, was that I was always going to struggle with my putting. And so I'd go out and hit 15 greens and shoot 75. And I'm like, of course I did. So that's like not knowing back then. What I know now is that you created that belief, and then you started providing evidence of it to be true. Right. And so I always encourage people, you got to believe ahead of time, and that evidence your brain will start looking for ways to prove it true. And so you accidentally backed it. I make the joke. I'm like, how the hell did you get that good belief? And I got the freaking putting belief. Right? But it's just one of those things that happens to our brains if we're not aware of them and creating certain beliefs about that. And so looking back at that now, knowing that you didn't do that deliberately, it just was one of those things that had happened. You had that belief of being the best player in the tournament as a junior, and you became the best junior in the country. Did your beliefs shift along the way as you became a tour player? You went up to a different level, and how do you see kids today, especially in college, as they struggle with that believing in themselves before they see the evidence?
Yeah. I would say, like, when I went to college, I still had that belief, even though I was my freshman year. I had a good year. I was an All-American, but I wasn't a first team or second team All-American or anything like that. But I was an All-American my freshman year, but I still felt like I don't know where this came from. Maybe it's just cockiness, or, I tried not to be outwardly cocky, but, really have a strong belief in my ability. And I felt like I was better than, there was a little initial, like, oh my gosh, I'm taking a new step. These are college kids. Most of them are older than me. And then once I got in there a little bit, I said, I'm just as good as these guys, not better. I'm like, they're not better than me, even though they beat me most of the time. But I still thought I was better than them. I just needed to learn and get better. And truthfully, even on tour, most of the time, I felt like I was better than. And now I know that's, not necessarily Tiger Woods. Right. A couple guys, Davis Love. I'm like, Davis, he can do some stuff that I can't do, but I felt like I could beat anybody on any given week. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do it for a living, you better believe that. Now I know if I played Tiger Woods 50 times, I'm going to lose 48 of them, Right. maybe more. I don't know,
Right.
but I'm going to believe that I'm going to try to beat him every time. And so if you're doing it for a living, you have to believe it. You just have to understand that when it doesn't happen, you just throw it out the window and we just go back to this. You go back to here. You don't go, oh my God, I suck. You know,
Right.
and
And
I see
noticing
that with
that
a lot.
all those too, though, the thing that I can share with you now, and, looking back in hindsight, is all the times that you had all that great game but yet you were negative to yourself, you were dipping away at your belief that you were a good player, right? Because it's like, I always call it's like confidence is on a seesaw. So you're either at one moment either tipping you more closer towards confidence or further away from it. So it just became harder. Like, you probably didn't have those same conversations with yourself when you were a junior golfer. Or if they did, they just kind of didn't stick.
The negative ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I definitely did when I was a junior golfer too. And I also I never hardly ever believed him. Like, that was something I learned from Motella. He goes, because at one point I said, okay, I got to stop doing this. And I just went completely like monotone, no emotion whatsoever. And I played like crap. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting mad. And he goes, yeah, but you don't have that fire that makes you good, that competitive fire that makes you good. You have to be yourself. He said, I don't mind you saying an occasional like thing or getting a little bit mad. Don't go over the top, because that's just kind of the personality you are. You're just a fiery, competitive guy. If you take that away, you've already proven that that's not the best space for you either. So we got to find this happy medium. So, because I never really believed, that I sucked. I would just say
Right.
you suck. It was just an initial reaction to
Yep.
a bad shot. And most of my bad stuff really was, as I learned, as I got older, it was more me getting mad because I didn't control what I could control. Once I kind of understood how this whole process worked, because I stood over a shot thinking negatively and I hit a bad shot, that pissed me off, because I'm like, I could control that. I'm like, why am I being such a pansy and not just committing to and then if I hit a bad shot, I don't like it. Nobody likes hitting a bad shot, but I could accept it more when I was controlling everything that I could control.
Yeah.
And just understanding that sometimes you do everything right and the shot doesn't end up the way you want.
Right.
And that I was usually pretty good at. I was not good at dealing with, just not doing things the right way before I pulled the trigger.
Right. I'm a big person now, for sure, in just creating the beliefs that you want, listening to that negative thinking and not believing it and turning it into a belief like I did. And so what do you notice that the kids that, especially in college, do you think is their biggest, or junior golf, what do you think is their biggest mental hurdle that they're facing for them to be able to play to their potential?
Well, they're all so different. That's what's kind of interesting. Since I've gotten into coaching, we got some kids that are super, super positive and not very good at being able to look at themselves objectively. You know what I mean?
They're like, everything's great, but yet there's things that they could work on and to improve.
Yeah. Like, I'm hitting as good as anybody on the team. And I'm like, God, I hope not, because then we're in big trouble. I'm like, I don't know what you're seeing, but this is what I'm seeing. Not trying to be a jerk, but it's just facts are facts sometimes,
right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, blinders on.
To get better at golf, you have to be, to a certain degree, your own worst critic. You have to lay in bed at night, look in the mirror in the morning and say, okay, how is my thought process? How is my physical stuff? What do I need to do to get better? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't understand it, pretty hard I can see it. I can look at stats. I can look at this. I can't get in their minds and understand what they're truly saying to themselves, what they're truly thinking over a shot. I can guess, when you're a super talented kid and you hit a 9-iron that goes 25 yards offline from the middle of the fairway, when you're a ball striking machine, I'm pretty confident that you weren't committed to your shot. You can hit a bad shot, but hitting it that bad when you're like an elite ball striker with a 9-iron is rare. So I can guess, and all I can do is pose a question and say, what were you thinking there? What were you, were you committed? Were you this? Were you in between? Did you think it was too much club? Did you think whatever? It could be a lot of things. But I think the biggest challenge that I'm seeing at this level is not, and it's not everybody, but it's just understanding on how to try to have a plan to get better every day, basically, and what you do every day. And it can be a little bit of a moving target, but there are like staples. There are things I tell guys that I do to this day, even though I'm not really competing or doing anything. There are putting drills that I've been doing for maybe different variations, different tools, but they all attack the same thing for 30 years.
Right.
And it's just stuff, in having a plan and direction, because I think it's just a generation. It's not necessarily just golfers.
Yeah.
Just our kids have so many things, distractions, iPads, phones, social media, all this stuff, and instant information, that sometimes they struggle on focusing on, okay, this is what I have to do for the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
And
I don't disagree with you. I think they're so easily distracted, which is, of course, our generation is going to think differently because we didn't have all those tools and tactics.
Yeah.
But it is a distraction to the brain and your ability to be able to focus. It just shows that short-term ability to do that. But also, I think for a lot of golfers, just not even junior golfers, it's really about enjoying the process of the game and getting better. It's not about rushing to an end and I'm done and it's over. We have to enjoy the process of practicing and understanding that our swing is sometimes going to be there and not be there, and not making it mean anything. Always looking at different ways of leveling up and knowing that you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And this is why, not necessarily why we play the game, but this is part of playing this game. And if you're not willing to enjoy the process of having those ups and downs, then you're going to suffer and struggle in the middle.
Yeah. And a big part of what I see is guys think or not just our guys, but just junior golfers or golfers, amateur golfers in general. I got a tournament coming up. I'm just going to go hard for 2 days before the tournament. I'm like, well, 2 days before the tournament is too late, in my opinion. I mean, it can help. It's better than nothing.
Right.
But it's just, this is the process. Here's what I do. We built a wedge test for these guys on the TrackMan. And it's one of the areas that I see the most consistent deficiencies. And at this level, being a good wedge player has nothing to do with physical ability, because these kids are all really good golfers, right? It just takes commitment, time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes every single day you practice.
Yeah.
And to get better at that. And there's no excuse. It's not like I'm taking a kid out on the range that has 112 mile an hour club head speed and say, okay, I want you to hit a big high draw that carries 310. He can't do it. Not right now. Maybe down the road, he gets bigger, stronger, and faster and grows and whatever. He might be able to do it a year or two from now, but he can't do that right now. I'm not asking anybody to do that. I'm asking somebody, if I ask him to hit 114 yards, they got to get within 2 yards of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost every time.
Right.
And that's what these guys all want to play the tour. There aren't guys that are bad at that. And our guys have really, really, really bought into this. I get it's boring. It's not always fun, but we have a board, like a whiteboard thing, that we put different statistics. Everything we do in practice is basically they get a score for, and we put it in front of the whole team. So they walk right by it. And when I got here and first started doing it in the fall, we had a few guys in the low 80s on our wedge test score out of 100, a lot in the 70s, and a couple high 60s. Now they're all almost mid 80s or better.
No, that's awesome.
Seeing improvement, and it's just literally doing it 3 times a week. They're not doing it like to me. We're getting ready to go to Vegas tomorrow for a tournament, and they've all been ramping up. All the guys playing, doing them every day. And it's 20 minutes. It's just warming up. It's little things like that just become a part of your practice session, period.
Right.
Non-negotiable.
And then it also is so helpful to see those numbers, because that's going to help build up their confidence too, right? That I can
see they're getting better.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. They see improvement. I mean, nobody wants to do anything over and over and over again. And it's like, wow, am I getting better?
Right. It's kind of like going up, like what a lot of amateurs do is they just go out and whack balls and they don't have a plan. And you don't know, to me, it's like treading water. You're going to spend all this energy treading water, but you're not going anywhere, right? Unless you have a plan and a path to get there. And I know that you are like the perfect person to do that, because that's like your expertise. Specialty.
I am incredibly anal about practice, you know that. And I don't have to write stuff down, but I mean, I actually took every kid and built a practice plan. I didn't tell them what to do, because they have to own their own plan. But I built a spreadsheet, and I put in putting, a few lines. They can put whatever drills, games. So we have a little area in that's a block practice, we call it, where they do their mechanical checks. And the mechanical checks, I don't want them any more than 10 minutes on putting, but I want them to do it every day.
Yeah.
So the whole point is if you do it for an hour, this is where I was going before. They're like, well, I'll do it for 2 days, an hour every day for 2 days. That's just as good as doing it 10 minutes every day for 2 weeks. It's not.
I gotcha. Yeah.
It's not. because you're checking your setup, you're checking your, your shoulder setup in a mirror, whatever drills you might be doing, your path, and just doing it a little bit every day, something you can commit to every single day.
Right.
And so we built these plans from putting, finesse wedges, which is around the green, bunker game, distance wedges, which is what I was talking about with the test. They don't have to do a test. There's multiple ways we can do that. And then the last is ball striking, because I want them to do all that stuff first, because we tend to go out there. I was guilty of this. You go out there on the range, you hit balls for 3 hours. It's hot. Now you're spent and you're like, okay, I got 40 minutes. I want to get out of here. I want to go see my girlfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, then this part, the most important part of your practice session gets wasted, in my opinion, because if you're not good at that other stuff, nothing else matters at this level.
Right.
You're not going to be, if you're not really good from 130 and in, I don't care about anything else. You're never going anywhere in golf. And at the college level, pro level, whatever, they all have pro dreams.
Right.
And there just are not guys that are weak at that stuff.
Right. I think you made a good point. It's it's one of those things that anybody can practice, and it's the fastest way for people to improve. So yeah, Dud, this was so good. Thank you so much. I think that there's a lot of content in here. I appreciate your insight. It was so nice to finally get you on the podcast,
anytime.
As my second brother.
I'll do anything for you. So anytime you want me on, happy to do it.
Yeah, no, I'll do that again. Maybe I'll get some of the players to come on too. So I'd love to get a spin on them. So anyway, all right. Well, good luck out in Vegas and have fun. And I'll come up to see that plaque on your door soon.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
See ya.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, my friends, there you have it. That is my brother. I'm thankful for him coming on and sharing some insight with you all. Hopefully you got some nuggets to take away to help you with your game. And if there's anything that I can help you with, make sure that you reach out to me at kathyhartwood.com. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.